Have you ever been the only woman in a room full of men who didn't think you belonged there? That was my life, every single day. But what happened at that auction? That changed everything. The June sun had no mercy. 38 degrees Celsius and climbing heat radiating off the gravel parking lot at Taylor Fairgrounds like the earth itself was trying to push everyone back indoors. Rebecca Williams stood at the edge of the crowd. 200 ranchers and farmers pressed together under the auction canopy, their voices a low rumble of bids and banter. 95% men, maybe more. She'd stopped counting years ago. Work boots crusted with dried mud jeans faded to almost white at the knees, and hair pulled back in a ponytail that hadn't seen a salon in 6 months. No makeup, no jewelry, except the thin gold band she still wore on her left hand, though David had been dead 3 years now. 3 years, 2 months, 14 days. Not that she was counting that either. Scout pressed against her leg the border collie's black and white coat, already dust-covered. 9 years old, one blue eye and one brown, the dog had been David's before he became hers. Or maybe it was always the other way around. Dogs chose their people, not the opposite. Jennifer stood 3 feet away, scrolling through her phone designer suit jacket draped over one arm despite the heat. 26 years old and already making more money than Rebecca had seen in a decade of farming. The consultant gig in Dallas paid well, paid for the BMW she'd driven up in anyway. Billy Kramer's voice crackled through the PA system auctioneer's rhythm, fast and hypnotic. Lot after lot, equipment rolling through, combines, balers, irrigation systems, the bones of failed operations sold piece by piece to those who'd survived another year. Rebecca wasn't here to buy. At least that's what she'd told herself, driving over. Mostly, she needed to see who was selling what, take the temperature of the county. When your own farm was 45 days from foreclosure, you paid attention to who else was drowning. The tractor appeared on the platform like a ghost from another era. Lot number 247, a 1947 John Deere Model B paint, surrendered entirely to Russ Tire's flat and cracked bird nest visible in the manifold. Even the auctioneer seemed embarrassed. Billy cleared his throat. "All right, folks, genuine piece of American history here. Don't run, but she's got good bones. Who'll start the bidding at 500? Silence. Even the cicadas seemed to pause. 300. Billy's voice climbed hopefully. "I got scrap value right here, boys." Snickers rippled through the crowd. Rebecca saw a few men shake their heads, turn away. Junk. Everyone knew it. Her plan had been simple, born of desperation at 3 in the morning when the bank notices piled too high to ignore. Buy something cheap at auction. Fix it up. Basic. Sell it fast to cover part of the bleeding. She'd learned enough from David to handle minor repairs. Enough to be dangerous, he used to joke. The tractor wouldn't sell for 300. Might go for 250, maybe 200, if she waited. That was profit margin she could work with. 800 on resale if the engine could be salvaged. Maybe 1,000 if she cleaned it up nice. 200, someone give me $200 here. Billy was pleading now. Rebecca's hand started to rise before her brain caught up. She'd opened her mouth, the bid forming, when a voice cut through from her right. "Ma'am, you sure you're in the right place? Quilting Auctions next door." Laughter. Not mean exactly, just the casual dismissal she'd grown accustomed to since David died. George Thompson stood 20 feet away, thumbs hooked in his belt, his son Brandon beside him in clothes too expensive for an equipment auction. Billy Kramer had the decency to look uncomfortable. He knew her. Everyone knew everyone in Brazos County. Rebecca kept her voice level. "I'm here for equipment, Billy. Same as every year." George Thompson's smile didn't reach his eyes. 58 years old, wealthy enough to make the bank bend when he walked in rancher, who'd somehow made money during the same drought that killed everyone else's herds. His spread bordered the Williams farm to the south, 1,200 acres to her 850. Used to be her 850. 45 days from now, it might belong to First National Bank. 250. The bid came out firm clear. Billy's head snapped toward her. "I got 250 from Mrs. Williams. Do I hear 300? George Thompson's laugh was loud enough to turn heads. "Rebecca, that thing's worth more as scrap. Save your money for the bank." Her jaw clenched. Every face in the crowd turned to watch. Now entertainment shifting from the auction to something more interesting. The Williams woman getting desperate. The widow in over her head. She met George's stare and didn't blink. "My money. My decision. For now." His voice dropped just low enough that she almost missed it. Billy's gavel cracked down. "Sold to Rebecca Williams for $250. Ma'am, you can settle up with the clerk." Walking through the crowd to pay felt like wading through concrete. Men stepped aside, but not quite enough. Made her angle sideways, squeeze past. Jennifer caught up halfway there, phone still in hand. "Mom, why?" The question came out sharp. "That tractor's junk. I can fix it, sell it for 800, maybe 1,000. That's profit." "You don't even know if the engine runs." "Then I'll learn." The clerk took her cash without comment. $250 from the emergency fund she'd been building, 120 here, 150 there, skimming from the grocery budget, and hoping Christopher wouldn't notice how often they ate rice and beans at college. The receipt felt like an accusation in her hand. Hauling the tractor back to the farm took until evening. The flatbed groaned under the weight, rust flaking off with every bump in the road. Jennifer drove her BMW, separately, back to Dallas, and the life she'd built away from dirt and desperation. Rebecca followed in her truck, scout riding shotgun, watching the trailer through the side mirror. The farmhouse looked smaller every time she came back to it. 1820s construction paint-peeling porch sagging on the left side where the support beam had rotted through. David kept saying he'd fix it. Then David was gone, crushed under a combine that should have been retired 5 years earlier, but they couldn't afford to replace. Equipment failure, the insurance investigator had ruled. Tragic accident, claim denied due to improper maintenance clause buried in the fine print. Rebecca unloaded the tractor behind the main barn as the sun painted the sky orange and purple. It looked worse in her own yard than it had at auction. Monument to poor judgment, another Williams failure. Jennifer's car was already gone when Rebecca walked up to the house. A note on the kitchen table in neat handwriting. "Mom, Meridian Development called again. Their offer is $2.1 million for the whole property. They want an answer in 30 days. Please think about it. Love you, Jay." $2.1 million. Enough to pay off the bank set up Christopher's college fund, maybe buy a small house in town. Live quiet, live safe. Watch the farm get bulldozed for some subdivision called Brazos Hills Estates, or Prairie View Commons, or whatever developers named things to make people forget what had been destroyed. Rebecca crumpled the note and missed the trash can. It bounced off the rim, landed on the floor. She left it there. Scout whined at the back door wanting dinner. She fed him mechanically, measuring kibble, filling the water bowl. The routine kept her hands busy while her mind spun through numbers that didn't add up no matter how she arranged them. $347,000 owed to First National Bank. 45 days until they called the note. Farm bringing in maybe $30,000 a year. Profit good years. Bad years nothing. 3 bad years running. The tractor sat outside the barn window, visible in the last light. Fix it and sell it. That was the plan. Start tomorrow early, assess the engine, see if it was salvageable or if she'd bought $250 worth of scrap metal and her own humiliation. But tomorrow was for sleep. Tomorrow was for pretending she had a plan beyond the next crisis. Except sleep wouldn't come. Rebecca lay in bed, staring at ceiling water stains, shaped like continents she'd never visit. Scout curled at the foot of the mattress. David's side still felt empty. 3 years, and she still reached for him sometimes in the dark, forgetting. At 10:30, she gave up. The tractor wasn't going to fix itself, and working meant not thinking. She pulled on jeans and a work shirt, grabbed her tool belt from the mudroom, headed out to the barn. The workshop smelled like motor oil and mouse droppings. She set up the portable work lights, the LED glare, harsh after the darkness. Scout followed, settling near the door, to watch. One-woman operation now. Used to be David handled machinery, and she managed the books, the planting schedules, the endless government paperwork, division of labor. Now she did everything, or tried to, learned as she went, made mistakes and fixed them when she could, lived with them when she couldn't. The tractor's hood groaned when she forced it open. Engine block. Caked in grease, thick as clay rust, eating through metal in dozens of places. Mouse nest tucked into a corner with acorns, stored for a winter that never came. Beautiful in its way. History layered over itself. She started cleaning with degreaser and wire brushes, working methodically. Spray scrub wipe. Spray scrub wipe. The repetition was meditative. No thinking required just motion. Muscles remembered the work even when her brain wanted to shut down. An hour in the wire brush hit something that rang instead of scraped. Different sound, different feel. She angled the light closer. A seam. Faint but perfect cut into the engine block in a rectangle maybe 8 by 10 inches. Too precise for natural casting. Too hidden under decades of grime for accident. Rebecca's pulse kicked up. She grabbed a flathead screwdriver from her belt, worked the tip into the seam. Nothing. Tried a different angle. Still nothing. The metal was flush, perfectly fitted. Scout stood and walked over, nose twitching. He sniffed the panel she was working on, whined low in his throat, then started pawing at the exact spot she'd been examining. Her voice came out rough from not using it. "You smell something in there, boy." The dog looked at her, brown and blue eyes, oddly intelligent, then went back to pawing, insistent. 45 minutes of careful prying, tapping, listening for the sound of hollow space behind metal, her hands cramped. Rust flaked under her nails. She was about to give up when the screwdriver found purchase in one corner and something inside the engine block went click. A spring released. The panel swung open on a hidden hinge so smooth it must have been oiled recently. Impossible. This tractor had been sitting in some barn for decades. Inside the cavity, wrapped in oilcloth, gone brittle and dark, a package, heavy, rectangular. Her hands shook, lifting it out. She carried it to the workbench, Scout trailing close. The oilcloth crackled when she unwrapped it, pieces crumbling away like ancient paper. Underneath leather, a journal cover embossed with initials that made her breath catch. J.W. James Williams, her grandfather, dead since 1989 when Rebecca was 18 and away at college, too busy with finals to come home for the funeral. Guilt she'd carried for 30 years. The journal opened to the first page, handwriting she barely remembered, but would have recognized anywhere. Neat block letters, old-school cursive. March 15th, 1985. Rebecca, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and somehow you found this tractor. The workshop went very still. Even Scout stopped panting. I hid this journal here because I couldn't risk your father finding it. He'd think I'm crazy, or the Thompsons finding it. They'd destroy it. Your great-great-grandfather, Robert Williams, left something behind in 1897. Proof that the Thompsons have been lying about Sweetwater Bend for 120 years. That land is ours, always has been. I found the trail 40 years ago, but was too scared to follow it all the way. Now I'm dying cancer, maybe 6 months left, and I need you to finish this. Why you? Because you're stubborn like Robert was. You don't quit, and you'll need that stubbornness to beat the Thompsons. First clue. The Iron Shepherd watches over those who rest in peace. Go to Oakwood Cemetery. Find Robert Williams's grave. Look for what doesn't belong. Trust Scout or whatever good dog you have by now. Don't trust anyone named Thompson. Grandpa James. P.S. I'm sorry I never told you this while I was alive. I was afraid. Don't be afraid like I was. Rebecca read it 3 times, then a 4th. The words didn't change. Her grandfather had known about the land dispute decades before George Thompson filed his claim. Known something was hidden, something worth protecting. Known and never told anyone. Died keeping the secret, trusting that someday, somehow, the right person would find this journal. Scout nudged her hand with his nose. Comfort or reminder? Hard to tell with dogs. The shop clock read 12:45. Too late to do anything tonight, but morning was only hours away. She hid the journal in the bottom of her tool chest, under the socket set David had bought the year they got married. Locked the chest, pocketed the key. The tractor sat with its panel hanging open, evidence of secrets revealed. She closed it, carefully wiped away her fingerprints like a criminal covering tracks. Inside the house, she set her alarm for 5:30. 4 hours of sleep. It would have to be enough. But she didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling, mind racing through implications. If her grandfather was right, if there was proof somewhere that the Williams family owned Sweetwater Bend, the 100 acres George Thompson claimed as his own, then everything changed. The foreclosure threat, the pressure to sell to Meridian, the constant weight of David's absence. All of it might have a solution she couldn't have imagined yesterday. Or her grandfather had been senile, chasing fantasies in his last year of life, and she was inheriting that delusion along with the debt. Only one way to find out. At 5:45, Rebecca drove to Oakwood Cemetery. Dawn light filtering through oak trees, temperature already climbing. 20 minutes north, past fields, turning gold with wheat, ready for harvest. Other people's wheat, other people's successful farms. The cemetery gates stood open, wrought iron spelling, Oakwood established 1867, in curling script. She'd been here twice in her life, once for David's funeral, standing numb while the preacher droned platitudes, once for her father's burial 15 years before, that Christopher, a toddler, on her hip. Never for her grandfather, that guilt again, familiar as breathing. Section C, Lot 14. The Williams family plot was easy to find, marked by a live oak older than the cemetery itself. Headstones clustered beneath like children seeking shade. David's was newest granite, still white, not yet weathered. She didn't look at it too long. Robert Williams, 1832 to 1897. The stone was weathered limestone words, barely legible. He tamed the land and defended what was his. Beside it, a smaller marker, Linda Williams, née Thompson, 1835 to 1862. Thompson. Robert Williams had married a Thompson woman. Rebecca filed that information away, not sure yet what it meant. Scout was already circling the grave nose to ground tail low. The dog stopped at the base of the headstone right corner and started pawing. Same behavior as last night with the tractor, same insistence. Rebecca knelt beside him, brushing away grass and 30 years of accumulated dirt. Her fingers found metal, rusted but shaped. She worked it free with her pocket knife, gentle pressure, until it came loose. A cast iron figurine 4 inches tall. Shepherd with a staff watching over sheep. The iron shepherd watches over those who rest in peace. Her grandfather's clue, literal as a child's riddle. But there had to be more. She examined the headstone closer, running her hands over weathered limestone. Nothing on the front. She walked around to the back. Numbers carved faint but deliberate, P-1-2-W. Footsteps on gravel made her turn. An old man in coveralls approached, pushing a wheelbarrow full of tools. 68, maybe 70, weathered face and kind eyes. His voice came out friendly. "Morning, Mrs. Williams, paying respects." She stood pocketing the iron figurine. "Yes, and actually, how long have you worked here?" 42 years come September. Name's Gary Young." "Did you know my grandfather, James Williams?" Something shifted in his expression. Recognition or memory? "Sure did. Good man. Used to come here a lot in the 80s. What was he doing? Said he was researching family history. Spent hours at this grave, taking measurements, making sketches. Gary set down the wheelbarrow, lowering his voice like they were sharing conspiracy. Couple weeks before he died, George Thompson's daddy, Ernest Thompson, came here asking about this same grave. Wanted to know if anyone had been digging. Rebecca's stomach went cold. Ernest Thompson offered me $500 to call him if anyone came asking about Robert Williams. I told him to shove it. Gary's grin was brief but genuine. Your family's always treated me right. Thompsons, they're different. The pieces were starting to connect. Lines drawn between past and present, between her grandfather's death and the current land dispute. "Gary, did my grandfather leave anything with you for me?" The old man's pause lasted just long enough. "How'd you know? Lucky guess." He led her to a maintenance shed, unlocked a file cabinet buried under years of paperwork. The envelope came out yellowed but intact, her name written across the front in her grandfather's handwriting. Her hands shook opening it. Inside, 2 things, a letter and an iron key 3 inches long. "Rebecca, if Gary gave you this, you found the Iron Shepherd. Smart girl. Here's the truth I couldn't tell you while I was alive." Robert Williams didn't just own Sweetwater Bend. He hid the proof because in 1896, Ernest Thompson's grandfather, Silas Thompson, tried to have Robert killed over it. Robert survived. Silas didn't go to jail, bought off the sheriff. But Robert knew the Thompsons would try again after he died. So he created an iron testament, proof locked in iron, hidden where only William's blood could find it. The numbers P12W, translation pasture 12, West Marker. Our farm used to be divided into numbered pastures. Your father still has the old map in his desk. Pasture 12 is what we call Sweetwater Bend, now the 100 acres George Thompson's claiming. West Marker equals the old windmill foundation. You'll need this. The key had been taped inside. The keyhole isn't on a door. Look for the iron ring. One warning, the Thompsons have been hunting for this testament since Robert died. If George finds out you're looking, he'll do whatever it takes to stop you. Be careful, Rebecca. Finish what I started. Grandpa James. P.S. Your father never believed me, thought I was senile. Don't make his mistake. Gary was watching her face. Whatever you're about to do, Mrs. Williams, you be careful. The Thompsons played dirty. I know. George was my husband's business partner once. I know exactly how dirty they play. The old man's expression darkened. Your husband David was a good man. He deserved better than what happened. She looked up sharp. What do you mean? But Gary was already turning away, back to his wheelbarrow. Just be careful around Thompson machinery. That's all I'll say. What nobody knew, not Jennifer, not George Thompson, not even me yet, was that rusty tractor was hiding the one thing that could save everything David and I built. I just had to find it first. Rebecca drove straight to Sweetwater Bend, northwestern corner of the farm, 100 acres of the best grazing land in Brazos County. Natural spring feeding Sweetwater Creek, year-round reliable water, even in drought years. The land George Thompson claimed was rightfully his, based on some 1899 county survey her grandfather was now telling her was forged. The old windmill stood on a low-rise concrete foundation, 10 feet square, tower, rusted but still standing. Blades hadn't turned in 40 years. David always meant to restore it, another project that died with him. Rebecca parked and got out, Scout jumping down to follow. She circled the foundation searching. North side, nothing. East side, nothing. South side revealed a slightly different shade of concrete patchwork maybe, but no iron ring. West side. There, embedded in the concrete, lying flush, so you'd miss it if you weren't looking an iron ring 4 inches across. She brushed away dirt and grass, revealing the full circle. In the center, barely visible, a keyhole. The iron key slid in like it had been made yesterday. Perfect fit. She turned it clockwise. Nothing. Tried counterclockwise. Resistance, then movement. 1 full rotation. 2, 3. Something deep in the foundation went clunk. The ring started to lift. Not just the ring, a circular section of concrete 3 feet wide, rising an inch on some hidden mechanism. Rebecca grabbed the edges and pulled. Heavy, 80 pounds, maybe more, but it came up revealing darkness underneath. Stone-lined chamber, 4 feet deep, dry despite being underground for over a century. And inside, sitting centered like an altar, offering an iron strongbox, 18 by 12 by 8 inches. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was real. This was actually real. She lifted the box out, heavier than it looked, rust-covered, but solid combination lock on the front. old rotary type 3 number dials, truck engine sound carried on the wind, getting closer. Rebecca looked up to see a white F-35 bouncing across the pasture Thompson Ranch logo on the door. No time. She grabbed the strongbox, replaced the concrete lid, shoved dirt over it with her boots. The truck was 30 seconds away. She threw the strongbox in her own truck bed, covered it with the tarp she kept for hauling hay. George Thompson climbed out before his truck fully stopped. 58 years old and still moving, like a man who'd never questioned his right to take up space. Brandon wasn't with him this time, just George alone, which somehow felt more dangerous. His voice carried across the open ground. "Rebecca! Trespassing on my land now." She walked toward him, keeping her body between George and her truck. "Your land. This is Williams' property, has been since 1858. "That's not what the county survey says. 1899 survey clearly shows this parcel as Thompson land." "Then that survey's wrong." He stepped closer, using his size to intimidate. 6 feet to her 5'6". "You calling my family liars?" "I'm saying mistakes happen. Old maps get confused." "Ain't nothing confused, Rebecca." Another step. "This land's mine. I'm filing legal claim next week." "File whatever you want. I'll fight it." His laugh held no humor. "With what money you're 45 days from foreclosure. You can't even afford a lawyer." "I'll find a way." "David tried to fight me too. Look where that got him." The words hung in the air between them. Rebecca's hands clenched into fists. "What did you say?" George seemed to realize he'd spoken too much. "I just meant he was stubborn like you. Wouldn't listen to reason." "David died in an equipment accident, on equipment we'd just serviced, with parts from your supply company." "You accusing me of something, Rebecca? Should I be?" He turned back to his truck without answering, opened the door, paused. "Sell to Meridian while you can. After foreclosure, you get nothing, and this land becomes mine one way or another." The F-350 drove off, leaving dust and implications. Rebecca waited until he was completely out of sight before checking the truck bed. The strongbox was still there, hidden under canvas. She drove home fast, checking the rear view every 30 seconds. The farmhouse was empty. Jennifer back in Dallas. Christopher at college. Just Rebecca and Scout and a century-old mystery locked in iron. She brought the strongbox inside straight to her bedroom. Closet floor behind winter coats. Safe enough for now. The combination lock stared at her 3 dials, 0 through 9 each. 1,000 possible combinations. Her grandfather's letter mentioned family dates. That had to be the key. She pulled out the Williams family Bible from the living room. Leather cracked with age. Inside the front cover, births and deaths recorded in fading ink. Robert Williams, born 1832. Linda Williams, née Thompson, born 1835, died 1862. Their son, James Rebecca's great-grandfather, born 1860. Daughter Mary, born 1862, died same day. Stillborn. Noted in parentheses, 3 significant dates, but the lock only had 3 dials, each going 0 to 9. She needed 3 single digits. Rebecca tried combinations for an hour. Birth years, death years, ages. Nothing worked. Her eyes burned from staring at faded handwriting. Her hands ached from spinning the dials. A bookmark marked Psalm 12. Cold-pressed flour, brown and brittle. She opened to the page, verses 6 and 7. The words of the Lord are pure words, as silver tried in a furnace. Thou shalt keep them, O Lord, thou shalt preserve them. Silver tried in a furnace, preserve them. Hidden treasure. The metaphor was obvious once you saw it. Psalm 12. First child, born in 60. Second child, in 62. She tried 602. The lock clicked open. Her hands shook, lifting the lid. Inside, layered carefully documents wrapped in oilcloth. A smaller iron box. A leather journal. Gold coins gleaming dull in the afternoon light. The first document made her breath stop. Original 1858 land grant deed, Republic of Texas, seal still visible. Williams family clear title to 850 acres, southern boundary marked 200 yards south of Sweetwater Creek. That put the disputed 100 acres firmly on Williams' land. Second document, 1859 survey map, signed by surveyor Thomas Rodriguez. Same boundary markers, same proof. Third, an affidavit dated 1896. Robert Williams's testimony about Silas Thompson hiring men to murder him. Sheriff refused to investigate. Notarized by the county judge. 18 gold double eagles from the Civil War era. She counted them twice, worth maybe $45,000 at current gold prices. Not enough to pay off the bank, but something. A start. Robert Williams's journal lay at the bottom. She opened it carefully. Pages brittle. Entry from June 1857. I have married Linda Thompson, despite her brother Silas's fury. He calls me fortune hunter, claims I married her for Thompson money. Truth, Linda and I married to protect this land. Silas wants to sell parcels to railroad speculators. Linda believes, as I do, land is sacred trust, not commodity. Together, our combined properties create buffer large enough to resist outside pressure. This is not fraud. This is survival of way of life. Another entry, October 1896. Silas hired 3 men to kill me at Sweetwater Creek. I saw them coming, rode hard, escaped. Sheriff Michaels, Silas's cousin, refused to investigate. I know Silas will try again. So I hide this testament proof of our land rights where only William's blood can find it. 3 locks protect it. The iron ring, the rotary lock, and 1 final lock requiring no key, only William's courage. Silas may forge papers, but cannot forge iron. Let this testament speak when I cannot. Rebecca sat on the bedroom floor, surrounded by evidence. Her great-great-great-grandfather hadn't just hidden money, he'd hidden truth. Legal, documented, notarized truth that the Thompsons had been lying for over a century. Her phone rang, Jennifer's name on the screen. She answered. Hey, honey. Jennifer's voice came through tight with stress. Mom, I'm back in Dallas. Just got an email from Meridian Development. They're moving the deadline up. They want an answer by this Friday, not 30 days. What? Why? They have another buyer interested in Brazos County land. It's now or never. Rebecca looked at the documents spread around her. Friday was 2 days away. That's not enough time. I know, Mom. I think you should accept. We're out of time. Jennifer paused. Mom, I found something. Something that might change everything. Found what? Proof. Proof that Grandpa James was right. Proof that we own way more land than we thought. The line went quiet for several seconds. Mom, please don't go chasing fantasies. We have a real concrete offer. $2.1 million. Life-changing money. This isn't fantasy. I'm holding 160-year-old legal documents in my hands right now. Old documents don't pay the bank, Mom. They do if they're authenticated and prove clear title. Jennifer's sigh carried through the phone. Fine, you have until Friday. But Mom, if this doesn't work out, promise me you'll sign Meridian's contract. I promise. The call ended. Rebecca sat alone with Scout and the weight of her own promise. 2 days to save everything or lose it all. Standing there, I realized the story I'd been told my whole life, that we were just unlucky, just bad at farming, just not strong enough to survive, was missing pieces. There was William's blood in the Thompson family, and some secrets don't stay buried. They wait, patient as iron, for someone stubborn enough to dig. Wednesday evening came with the kind of quiet that made noise in your head louder. Rebecca spread the documents across the kitchen table, every piece of evidence laid out like cards in a game she didn't know the rules for. The gold coins caught lamplight, 18 double eagles, minted during years when the country tore itself apart. History compressed into metal. Scout lay under the table, chin on her boot, waiting the way dogs do when they know something matters, even if they can't understand what. The land grant deed was almost too fragile to handle. Rebecca photographed it with her phone camera, careful not to use flash. Then the survey map, the affidavit, every page of Robert Williams' journal, digital backup in case something happened to the originals, in case George Thompson sent someone to finish what his great-grandfather started. Her laptop sat open to a search, Authenticate Historical Documents, Texas. Results pointed to university labs, specialized conservators, forensic archivists, the kind of expertise that came with price tags she couldn't afford. University of Texas at Austin Historical Document Lab appeared third in the results. Forensic analysis, carbon dating, ink spectroscopy. Services starting at $4,500. Rush service available for additional fees. Rebecca's checking account balance, $1,214.33. The gold coins stared back at her from the table. She picked up two. 1862 double eagles, Liberty Head on one side, eagle on the reverse. Each may be worth $2,500 to the right buyer. Selling family history to save family land. The irony wasn't lost. Phone call to a coin dealer in Bryan took 15 minutes. Yes, he'd buy them. $5,000 cash for the pair if she brought them by tomorrow morning. No paperwork, no questions. The kind of transaction that happened in back rooms of shops that smelled like old paper and other people's desperation. $5,000 would cover authentication with enough left over for gas and maybe groceries, if she stretched it. The house felt emptier than usual. Jennifer's absence, like negative space, the shape of worry she'd left behind. Christopher at college, probably in his dorm room, studying or pretending to study while his mother's world collapsed in slow motion. Better he didn't know. Better he stayed focused on differential equations and English lit, on building a future that didn't involve watching bank foreclosure auctions. Rebecca's phone buzzed. Text from Kenneth Lee, her neighbor to the north. Saw your barn door hanging crooked. Coming by tomorrow to fix it. Don't argue. She typed back, "You don't have to." His response came immediately, "I know. See you at 8. Kenneth had been widowed 5 years ago. Cancer, the kind that gave you time to say goodbye, but not enough time to mean it. His farm ran 600 acres cattle, mostly, some hay. He'd offered to help with her operation a dozen times. She'd refused every time pride or stubbornness or the simple fear that accepting help meant admitting David really wasn't coming back. But pride didn't pay bills, stubbornness didn't fix broken equipment, and David had been gone 3 years, 2 months, 16 days now. She typed, "Thank you." The clock showed 11:40. Too late to call anyone, too early to pretend tomorrow wasn't coming. Rebecca locked the documents in the strongbox, carried it to her bedroom, shoved it under the bed behind winter storage boxes. Not secure exactly, but out of immediate sight. Sleep came in fragments. Dreams where David stood at the fence line of Sweetwater Bend, pointing at something she couldn't see. Dreams where the ground opened up and swallowed the farmhouse whole. Dreams where she showed up to court with empty hands, the documents turned to dust. She woke at 5:30 to pale light through curtains that needed replacing. The strongbox was still there, solid and real. Not a dream then, not delusion, just reality, stranger than it had been yesterday. Coffee first, then action. She dressed in clean jeans and the button-down shirt she saved for bank meetings, the one that made her look like someone who had their life together. Appearances mattered when you were asking strangers to believe 160-year-old paper could save your farm. Kenneth's truck pulled in at 8 exactly. She watched him from the kitchen window, tall and lean, in work clothes, tool belt slung low. He'd been handsome once, still was, if she let herself notice. But noticing felt like betrayal even 3 years out. The barn door hung on one hinge, sagging into dirt. She'd meant to fix it, added it to the list of things she meant to do, the list that grew faster than she could check items off. Kenneth had it repaired in 20 minutes. New hinge-level adjustment latch that actually caught. He tested it 3 times before nodding approval, then turned to find her standing there with coffee. His voice carried that easy warmth she remembered from before, when there were 4 of them instead of 2. Door should hold another 10 years now. "Thank you. I'll pay you when I can." Rebecca. Just her name, but waited. "We've been neighbors 15 years, since before David. Let me help." Everyone thinks I'm crazy, trying to fight the Thompsons, chase old family stories. I don't think you're crazy. I think you're the toughest woman to know. I don't feel tough. I feel scared. His hand touched her shoulder, brief contact that sent warmth through her shirt. Scared's okay. Giving up's not, and you're not a quitter. The moment stretched between them, something unspoken shifting in the air. Then Kenneth stepped back, cleared his throat. "I should go, but Rebecca, you need anything day or night, you call me." "I will. Thank you, Kenneth." She watched his truck disappear down the drive, dust settling in its wake. Scout nudged her hand, jealous or sympathetic, hard to tell. 9 o'clock found her at the coin dealer's shop in Bryan. Narrow storefront between a pawn shop and a laundromat, bars on the windows, smell of old books and metal inside. The dealer was 60-ish, bald, suspicious eyes that softened when she laid the coins on his counter. He examined them under magnification, checking dates and mint marks, weighing them on a digital scale. 1862 Philadelphia Mint. Good condition considering age. I can do $5,000 cash. Deal. He counted out 50 $100 bills, made her sign a receipt that probably wouldn't hold up to IRS scrutiny. She didn't care. The money went into her purse. Emergency fund, rebuilt for the moment. By 10:15 she was on Interstate 35, heading south toward Austin. 2-hour drive, scout riding shotgun, the strongbox hidden under a blanket in the back seat. Every mile marker felt like counting down to something. Salvation or disaster. 50-50 odds. The UT Austin campus sprawled across 40 acres, limestone buildings, and live oaks, students walking paths like they had all the time in world. Rebecca found parking near Benson Hall, checked the address twice. Historical document lab, basement level. Down concrete stairs that smelled like old paper and preservation chemicals. Fluorescent lights buzzing. Door marked with simple lettering, Historical Document Lab, Dr. Patricia Clark, Director. Rebecca knocked. A voice called, "Come in." The lab was part workspace, part museum. Document examination tables, microscopes, UV lights, shelves lined with acid-free boxes. Dr. Patricia Clark stood at a light box, studying something too small to see from the doorway. 42, maybe white dark hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain. She glanced up. "Mrs. Williams." "Yes, thank you for seeing me on short notice." "Your email was intriguing. 1850s land grant documentation. You said Dr. Clark's interest seemed genuine, not just professional courtesy." "Let's see what you have." Rebecca laid the documents on the examination table. Deed first, then survey map. Dr. Clark's expression changed, skepticism shifting to focus. She pulled on cotton gloves, lifted the deed with careful fingers. Republic of Texas seal, pre-statehood issue. She turned it over, examining the reverse. Paper feels right for the period. Where did these come from? Family heirloom, hidden since 1897. Hidden how? In an iron box underground sealed chamber, dry storage. Dr. Clark carried the deed to a UV light station, positioning it carefully. Purple light revealed patterns invisible to normal sight. She leaned close, studying. Paper analysis will confirm, but this looks like 1850s cotton rag production. No wood pulp markers, appropriate for pre-1870 documents. She moved to the survey map, next same careful examination. Ink appears to be iron gall formulation, period appropriate. Oxidation patterns consistent with century-plus aging. Back to the deed, checking the seal. Wax composition would need chemical analysis, but visual inspection suggests authenticity. Rebecca's lungs remembered how to breathe. So they're real. I'll need to run full forensic analysis to be certain. Carbon dating, spectral analysis, handwriting comparison against known samples. Our standard authentication takes 10 to 14 days. I need it faster. I have 2 days. Dr. Clark looked up from the microscope. 2 days. There's a land dispute. Legal deadline Friday. These documents prove my family's ownership, but only if they're authenticated. Mrs. Williams' proper authentication can't be rushed. Too much risk of error. Then give me preliminary findings, enough for an emergency court filing. That would be 80% confidence at best. Opposing counsel would challenge it. Let them challenge. I just need to get in the door. Rebecca pulled out the cash, counted it onto the table. $5,000. Rush service. Preliminary report by tomorrow evening. Full authentication to follow. Can you do it? Dr. Clark studied the money, then the documents, then Rebecca. Something in her expression softened. You're really fighting for this. It's all I have left. What happened to your husband? The question caught her sideways. Equipment accident. 3 years ago. Combine rolled, crushed him. Insurance wouldn't pay. said it was improper maintenance. I'm sorry. Dr. Clark gathered the cash, made it disappear into a desk drawer. I'll prioritize your case. Preliminary findings by tomorrow night, full report within the week. But, Mrs. Williams, you understand, I'm reporting what the evidence shows. If these are forgeries, I can't lie. They're not forgeries. Then we'll prove it. Dr. Clark began photographing the documents with specialized equipment. Leave them with me. I'll email updates as I progress. Rebecca's hands shook, signing the chain of custody forms. Leaving the documents felt like leaving pieces of her heart in a stranger's care. But trust had to start somewhere. The drive home took longer than the drive down. Traffic construction, her mind spinning through scenarios. By the time she pulled into the farmhouse drive, afternoon sun was slanting golden across the fields. Jennifer's BMW sat in the driveway. Her daughter stood on the porch, arms crossed, face set, in that expression that meant trouble. "Mom, we need to talk." Inside, Jennifer had spreadsheets open on her laptop, numbers and projections graphs showing various scenarios. The consultant in her couldn't help analyzing, even when it was her own family's crisis. Her voice came out tight. "I called Meridian, tried to extend the deadline. They said Friday or the offer disappears forever." "I know. So what's the plan?" "You said you found documents." "Where are they?" "Austin, being authenticated at UT's forensic lab." "When do you get results?" "Tomorrow night. Preliminary findings anyway." Jennifer's jaw clenched. "That's cutting it close, Mom." "I'm aware. And if the documents don't authenticate, if this whole thing is some wild goose chase Grandpa James sent you on because he was ding and confused, then I sign Meridian's contract Friday, just like I promised." Her daughter's shoulders dropped, some tension releasing. Okay, I can work with that timeline." She turned back to her laptop. "I've been running numbers. If you sell to Meridian after paying off the bank, you'd clear $1.7 million, enough to buy a small house in town, set up Christopher's college fund, maybe start a small business. You could live comfortable." "I don't want comfortable. I want this farm." "Why? It's killing you, Mom. 3 years of watching you work yourself to exhaustion, never enough money, never enough help. David's gone. You don't have to keep punishing yourself." "I'm not punishing myself." "Then what do you call this?" Jennifer's gesture took in the kitchen, the whole house, the weight of everything unsaid. "You're drowning, and you won't let anyone throw you a rope because you think that means David died for nothing." The words hit like a fist. Rebecca's voice came out cold. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I, Mom? I love Dad. But he's been gone 3 years. At some point, you have to let go." "I have let go." "No, you haven't. You're still wearing his wedding ring on a chain around your neck. You still make his favorite meals, even though he's not here to eat them. You're still trying to prove something to a man who can't see it anymore." Rebecca's hand went to the chain under her shirt, feeling the gold band warm against her skin. She hadn't realized Jennifer noticed. Before she could respond, headlights swept across the kitchen window. Vehicle pulling in. Not Kenneth's truck. Not anyone she recognized. Rental car, neutral sedan, out-of-state plates. The man who got out was 45, maybe khakis, and a polo shirt, friendly face that set off warning bells precisely because it was so friendly. He walked to the porch like he belonged there. Rebecca met him at the door, Scout alert beside her. "Can I help you?" His smile was professional. "Mrs. Williams, I'm Jonathan Martin, private investigator. I was hoping we could talk." "About what?" "About George Thompson, and why he's been obsessed with your land for 40 years. Jennifer appeared behind Rebecca. "Mom, don't." But Rebecca was already opening the door wider. "Come in." They sat at the kitchen table, the same place she'd spread the documents last night. Jonathan Martin declined coffee, pulled out a tablet instead. His voice had that neutral tone investigators cultivated, presenting facts without judgment. "I've been researching the Thompson family for 3 weeks. Hired by Laura Miller, George's younger sister." Rebecca's mind caught on the name. Why would she investigate her own brother? "Because she's tired of the family feud, and she thinks you deserve to know the truth." He turned the tablet to show a family tree branches spreading across generations. Laura Miller's mother was Barbara Williams, your grandfather James's younger sister. The room went very still. Jennifer leaned forward, staring at the screen. Rebecca's voice came out flat. "My grandfather had a sister. Yes, Barbara Williams married Ernest Thompson in 1954. Your family disowned her." "Why?" "Because Ernest Thompson tried to buy Sweetwater Bend from James Williams in 1953. When James refused, Ernest married Barbara to create a blood claim to Williams' property." Jonathan swiped to another document. "It gets worse. In 1987, your grandfather James was getting close to finding Robert Williams's hidden documents. He'd located cemetery clues, knew about the windmill site." 1987, but he died in 89. From aggressive colon cancer. Very sudden, very fast for a healthy 73-year-old man. Jonathan's expression stayed neutral, but his meaning was clear. Ernest Thompson had access to agricultural pesticides, later banned for causing cancer. Your grandfather was healthy until he started getting close to the truth. 2 months after James died, Ernest filed a new claim to Sweetwater Bend based on newly discovered 1899 survey documents. Rebecca's hands gripped the table edge. "You think Ernest Thompson poisoned my grandfather?" "I think the timing is suspicious. I think Ernest had motive, means, and opportunity. I think your grandfather's cancer was unusually aggressive and fast-moving, and I think 2 months is a very convenient gap between James's death and Ernest's land claim." Jennifer's face had gone pale. "Can you prove any of this?" "No. It's been 30 years. Medical records are sealed, but I can establish a pattern of harassment, intimidation, and suspicious timing that would support your case in court." Rebecca's mind spun through implications. Her grandfather hadn't just died. He'd been murdered. Maybe, probably, by the father of the man who was trying to steal her land right now. Her voice came out steady despite the rage building. "Who hired you to investigate this?" "Laura Miller, Ernest Thompson's daughter-in-law, George's younger sister. She lives in Oregon now, left Texas in 95. Jonathan pulled up another document. "She hired me because she's Barbara Williams's daughter. She grew up hearing her mother cry about losing her family. Laura wants the feud to end. By helping me, by revealing the truth, whatever it is." He met her eyes. "Laura wants you to know not all Thompsons are like George. And if you authenticate those documents, she'll support your claim publicly." "Why should I believe you?" Jonathan pulled out his phone, dialed, handed it to her. "Ask her yourself." The voice that answered was female, 50-ish kind. "Hello, Mrs. Miller. This is Rebecca Williams. A pause then. Oh, Rebecca, thank you for taking Jonathan's call. He says you want to help me. I do. My family has done terrible things to yours. My father, my brother. I grew up watching them destroy anyone who stood in their way. I won't be part of it anymore. Your investigator thinks your father killed my grandfather. I think so too. Laura Miller's voice cracked slightly. My father was capable of terrible things, and I know my brother inherited that capability. Mrs. Williams, Rebecca, I want you to win this case. Why? Because my mother died ashamed of what the Thompsons did to the Williams family. I won't carry that shame. She paused. If you need money for legal fees, my husband Stephen can help. He runs an agricultural investment fund. If your documents authenticate, he'll give you a bridge loan to pay off the bank. Rebecca's throat went tight. Why would you do this? Because we're family, Rebecca. Distant, damaged family, but family, and it's time we started acting like it. The call ended. Rebecca handed the phone back to Jonathan, her thoughts racing. George Thompson was her cousin. Second cousin through marriage, twisted family trees, but blood relation nonetheless. The enemy she'd been fighting shared DNA. Jennifer broke the silence. This is insane. Jonathan gathered his tablet. I can testify about the Thompson family's 40-year pattern of harassment. I have documented evidence of George's intimidation tactics, Brandon's legal manipulation, their attempts to sabotage your farm operations. It would support your case. What do you want in return? Nothing. Laura's paying me. She just wants you to know the truth. After Jonathan left, Rebecca sat at the table while Jennifer paced. Her daughter's voice came out sharp. Mom, this is getting too complicated. Family connections, murder theories, private investigators. Maybe we should just take Meridian's money and walk away. I can't. Why not? Because if I walk away, Ernest Thompson wins. Even dead, he wins. And I won't give him that. Jennifer stopped pacing. Mom, you're scaring me. I'm scaring myself. Rebecca looked at her daughter, really looked. But I'm not backing down, not this time. The phone rang. Unknown number. Rebecca answered. Sheriff Donald Thomas's voice came through official and tired. Mrs. Williams, I need to inform you that George Thompson filed a formal complaint. Claims you've been trespassing on disputed land, tampering with property markers. That's ridiculous. I was on my land. Ma'am, until the court decides whose land it is, I need you to stay away from Sweetwater Bend. Both of you. Donald, you know George is lying. I know there's a dispute. And I know I don't have resources for a range war. Stay off that land until this is settled legally. The line went dead. Rebecca set the phone down carefully, afraid she'd throw it otherwise. Jennifer's expression had shifted from worry to determination. Okay, so we're doing this. What do we need? A miracle would be good. Mom, documents authenticate tomorrow. If they're real, we file emergency injunction. That freezes Thompson's claim and the bank foreclosure, buys us time for a full hearing. And if they don't authenticate, then Friday afternoon I sign Meridian's contract and we start packing. They worked until midnight preparing. Jennifer drafted legal language for the injunction filing. Rebecca sorted through 30 years of farm records looking for anything that showed the Williams family had always contested Thompson cattle, grazing on Sweetwater Bend. Every written complaint, every sheriff's report, every piece of evidence. that George's adverse possession claim was bullshit. She found them in a filing cabinet in the barn office. Folder labeled Boundary Disputes 1985 to 2015. 12 formal complaints filed with Brazos County Sheriff's Office dating back to when her father ran the farm, all complaining about Thompson cattle trespassing on Williams' property, specifically the Sweetwater Bend area. The latest was from Rebecca, herself filed in 2014, 2 years before David died, back when they still thought they had time to fight properly. These complaints killed George's adverse possession argument dead. 30 years of formal written objections proved the grazing had never been uncontested. Texas law was clear: you couldn't claim ownership through use if the real owner kept objecting. Rebecca photocopied everything, scanned digital backups. If George wanted a legal fight, she'd give him one. By the time she collapsed into bed, it was past 1 in the morning. Scout curled against her legs, warm and solid. The room was dark except for phone screen glow. Email notification Dr. Patricia Clark sent at 12:47 a.m. Mrs. Williams, preliminary analysis is promising. Paper fiber consistent with 1850s production. Ink spectroscopy matches iron gall formulations from that era. Seal appears genuine. I'm running accelerated carbon dating overnight. We'll have confidence percentage by 5 p.m. tomorrow. These documents look authentic. More to follow. Dr. Clark. Rebecca read it 3 times, then slept. Thursday morning brought Christopher home. Her son's truck pulled in at 8, dusty from the drive from College Station. 18 years old and already taller than his father, had been same dark hair, same stubborn jaw. He found her in the kitchen making coffee. Before you yell I didn't drop out. I told my professors I have a family emergency. They gave me a week. She wanted to be angry, couldn't find it. Christopher, Mom, I'm 18. I can make my own decisions, and I'm not letting you fight this alone. The hug came without planning, her son's arms strong around her. You're so much like your father. Is that bad? No, baby, that's perfect. They had breakfast together, all 3 of them. Jennifer made scrambled eggs, while Rebecca toasted bread. Christopher set the table like he used to when he was 10. Normal domestic routine in the middle of chaos. It felt like holding on to something that wanted to slip away. At noon, Margaret Anderson called, the family attorney, 60-something and tougher than barbed wire. Her voice came through clipped and professional. Rebecca, I've reviewed the photocopies you sent. If those documents authenticate, you have an airtight case. If? When? Dr. Clark is the best in Texas. Trust her process. George filed a complaint. Sheriff told me to stay off Sweetwater Bend. Smart move by George. He's boxing you in, legally preventing you from gathering more evidence. Margaret paused. We wait for authentication, then we file emergency injunction Monday morning. Freezes Thompson's claim, freezes bank foreclosure, gives us time for a full hearing. What about Meridian's deadline tomorrow? Can you stall? Rebecca had already tried. The answer was no. But she said, I'll figure something out. The afternoon crawled. Rebecca worked on tractor maintenance she'd been putting off, hands busy, while her mind spun. Christopher helped, handing her tools, asking questions about the farm's operation. Learning in case this all went sideways, and he ended up inheriting nothing but debt and lessons. Jennifer stayed inside on her laptop, running scenarios. The consultant couldn't help trying to optimize, even when optimization meant accepting defeat. At 4:30, Rebecca's phone buzzed. Email from Dr. Clark. Call me. She walked to the barn for privacy, dialed the number. Dr. Clark answered on the first ring. Her voice came through excited professional veneer cracking. Mrs. Williams' preliminary results are significant. Paper analysis confirms 1850s Texas cotton rag production. Ink spectroscopy shows iron gall composition matching period formulations. Seal verification matches archived Republic of Texas examples. Handwriting analysis of surveyor's signature shows 94% probability match against known samples. Rebecca's knees went weak. She sat on a hay bale. So they're real. Preliminary confidence 82%. Full authentication will take another week, but for emergency legal filings this is sufficient. I'm sending a notarized affidavit now confirming preliminary findings. Dr. Clark, thank you. You just saved my family. You saved yourself, Mrs. Williams. You had the courage to look. The call ended. Rebecca sat in the barn dust motes, floating in late afternoon light, and let herself cry. Not sad tears. Relief so overwhelming it had nowhere else to go. Scout found her there, pressed against her leg. Comfort without judgment. She pulled herself together, walked back to the house. Jennifer and Christopher were in the kitchen, looking worried. She held up her phone. Her voice came out shaky. They're real. The documents are authentic. Jennifer's face crumpled. Oh my God! Christopher grabbed her in a hug that lifted her feet off the ground. Mom, we won. Not yet, but we've got ammunition now. The celebration was brief. Margaret Anderson needed to know immediately. Rebecca called, explained the results. The attorney's satisfaction was audible through the phone. Perfect. I'm drafting the emergency injunction now. I'll file electronically with county court by 4 p.m. tomorrow. Judge Patricia Martinez is on duty. She's fair smart, doesn't tolerate fraud. What are our chances? With authenticated documents, 95%. George Thompson's been operating on a forged survey for decades. The truth has a way of winning once it comes to light. He'll fight. Let him. We have evidence. He has lies. Margaret's voice softened slightly. Rebecca, you did it. You actually did it. After the call, Rebecca phoned Laura Miller's husband. Stephen Scott answered on the third ring, his voice carrying West Coast ease. Mrs. Williams, Laura said you might call. Your wife offered a bridge loan. Is that still available? Pending full authentication, yes. $350,000 at 6% interest, 60-day term. Gives you time to refinance properly with clear title. What do you need from me? Notarized affidavit from Dr. Clark confirming preliminary findings. Full authentication report when available. Your signature on loan documents. Done. When can we close? Next week, assuming everything checks out. But, Mrs. Williams, Laura wanted me to tell you something. This isn't just business for us. It's family. And it's time our families stop destroying each other. Rebecca's throat went tight. Thank you for everything. Thank your ancestors. They had the foresight to document the truth. Dinner that night was the first meal in months that didn't taste like ash. Jennifer made spaghetti. Christopher set the table. Rebecca opened a bottle of wine she'd been saving for an occasion that never seemed to come. Now it had. Kenneth joined them. Invited because he'd been part of this, whether he knew it or not. His presence at the table felt right, filling space that had been empty too long. Halfway through the meal, headlights swept across the window. White, F35. Oh, Thompson truck? But it was Brandon who got out, not George, the lawyer's son, alone, looking smaller without his father's shadow. He walked to the door, knocked softly. Rebecca met him on the porch, Scout beside her. Kenneth stood in the doorway, protective, without saying a word. Brandon's voice came out tired. "Mrs. Williams, I'm not here to threaten you." "Then why are you here?" "To tell you my father's planning something tonight. He knows about the authentication. He knows you're filing injunction tomorrow. So he's hiring someone to break into your house, steal whatever you found, burn it." Rebecca's hands clenched. "How do you know?" "Because he asked me to help arrange it, and I said no." Brandon looked at her directly. "My Aunt Laura called me last night, told me about the investigation about what Grandpa Ernest did to your grandfather. She asked if I really wanted to spend my life hating my own cousins." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I'd think about it. And I did, all night." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "These are copies of communications between my father and his legal team, plans to contest your injunction arguments they're preparing." "I shouldn't be giving you these. I'll probably lose my law license if anyone finds out." "Why risk it?" "Because my father's a bitter old man who can't let go. I don't have to be him." He handed her the envelope. "Mrs. Williams, if your documents are real, if they prove the Wades own Sweetwater Bend fair and square, then my family's been wrong for a century, and I don't want to be part of that anymore." Rebecca took the envelope. "Your father won't forgive you." "I'll live." Brandon extended his hand. "Truce." She shook it. "Truce?" After Brandon left, Rebecca called Sheriff Thomas, explained the threat. He agreed to have Deputy Ryan Robinson patrol past the farm every hour overnight. Not much, but something. Kenneth refused to leave. He'd sleep on the couch, he said, just in case. And Rebecca was too tired to argue, too grateful for the presence of someone who wouldn't let her face this alone. Jennifer and Christopher went to bed around 11. Rebecca stayed up with Kenneth drinking coffee that wouldn't let them sleep anyway. They talked about everything except what mattered, careful small talk that let them sit together without addressing the weight of sitting together. At midnight, Kenneth's voice went quiet. "Rebecca, after this is over, whether you win or lose, I want you to know something." "What?" "I think you're amazing, and if you ever want company for dinner or just coffee or anything, I'd like that." Her heart did something complicated. "Kenneth, I know it's too soon. David's only been gone 3 years, but I wanted you to know. No pressure." She reached across the space between them, touched his hand. "Thank you. For everything. Let me get through this first. Take all the time you need." They sat like that, hands touching, until exhaustion pulled them both towards sleep. Kenneth stretched out on the couch. Rebecca made it to her bedroom, collapsed, fully clothed. Her phone buzzed at 6 a.m. "Margaret Anderson. Filing injunction in 4 hours. Are you ready?" Rebecca typed back. "Ready." Standing in that parking lot, I realized the story I'd been told my whole life about Wade's versus Thompson's blood enemies' scorched earth was missing pieces. There was Wade blood in the Thompson family, and some of them wanted peace, not war. Friday arrived with the kind of clarity that comes after storms. Rebecca woke to Christopher making breakfast, the smell of bacon, pulling her from dreams where courtrooms had no walls and judges spoke in her grandfather's voice. Jennifer sat at the table with her laptop, already open color-coded spreadsheets showing timelines they'd be racing against. Margaret Anderson's injunction would be filed at 10 a.m. Meridian Development's deadline expired at 5 p.m., 7 hours to change everything or lose it all. Kenneth showed up at 7:30 with a thermos of coffee, stronger than anything Rebecca had in the house. He'd gone home to shower and change, but came back like he'd promised steady presence that asked for nothing. The four of them sat around the kitchen table, battle plans for a war fought with paper instead of guns. Jennifer had printed the complaints against Thompson, trespassing organized chronologically. Christopher had mapped property boundaries on satellite images showing where Williams' land ended and Thompson claims began. Margaret needed everything emailed by 9:15 to attach to the injunction filing. Rebecca's phone rang at 8:02. Unknown number. She answered. "Mrs. Williams, this is Frank Delaney, First National Bank." The vice president, who'd been calling monthly about her lone voice, always cold as January. Rebecca's stomach dropped. His words came fast, rehearsed. "I need to inform you we've received an offer to purchase your note. Blackwood Ranch, LLC is offering to pay your full balance, $347,000, in exchange for immediate deed transfer of Sweetwater Bend's 100 acres. That's not how loans work. I have until August 15th. Our contract includes an acceleration clause. If we deem the collateral at risk, we can demand immediate payment. My farm's not at risk. Mrs. Williams, you've posted losses 3 consecutive years. Your financial statements indicate insolvency. The land's worth more than you can generate revenue to service the debt. I'm not selling Sweetwater Bend to Thompson. Then you'll need to pay the full $347,000 by August 15th. Can you do that?" Her throat went tight. Stephen Scott's loan wouldn't close for a week, maybe more. She had 43 days, not the cushion she thought. "I'm working on it." "Work faster. After August 15th, we proceed with foreclosure." The line went dead. Jennifer was staring at her. What happened? Banks threatening early foreclosure. Thompson offered to buy the note, take Sweetwater Bend directly. Can they do that? Apparently. Rebecca stood pacing. But if we get the injunction today, it freezes everything. Bank can't foreclose while there's active litigation over title. Christopher checked his phone. It's 8:05. Margaret files in 1 hour, 10 minutes. The longest hour of Rebecca's life. She tried to work, couldn't focus. Tried to read words, swam. Ended up standing at the kitchen window, watching Sweetwater Bend in the distance, 100 acres that 4 generations had fought for that 1 more generation might lose anyway. Scout pressed against her leg. Dogs knew when humans needed anchoring. 9:15 came and went. 9:30. Rebecca's phone stayed silent. At 9:48, Margaret called. Filed. Judge Martinez accepted it for review. She's issuing a ruling by end of business today. And today? She doesn't waste time when fraud's involved. Rebecca, this is good. It means she sees merit. Or she's rejecting it fast. Have faith. I'll call when I know more. The morning stretched like taffy. Rebecca tried to eat lunch, managed 3 bites of sandwich. Christopher sat with her, not talking, just present. Jennifer worked her laptop, drafting contingency plans for both outcomes. Kenneth fixed the fence, along the north pasture busywork that kept him close. He'd text every hour, "Still here? Still okay?" At 1:30, Rebecca's phone rang. Margaret's number. Her voice came through triumphant. "We won preliminary." Rebecca's knees went weak. She sat hard on a kitchen chair. "What?" "Judge Martinez granted the emergency injunction. Thompson's land claim is frozen pending full evidentiary hearing. Bank foreclosure is stayed pending resolution of title dispute." Her preliminary findings suggest Williams' family holds superior claim based on authenticated documentation. "We won. Preliminary injunction, yes. Full hearings in 45 days. But, Rebecca, this is huge. You're safe. The farm's safe." Jennifer was crying. Christopher grabbed Rebecca in a hug that lifted her off the chair. Kenneth's text came through. "Saw your face through the window. Good news." She typed back, "Best news." But celebration felt premature. They had breathing room, not victory. George Thompson wouldn't accept this lying down. At 3 p.m. his F350 pulled into the drive. Not Brandon this time. George himself, alone, moving like a man carrying weight that finally broke him. Rebecca met him on the porch. Kenneth appeared from the barn, positioning himself close enough to help if needed. Scout stayed at Rebecca's side, alert but not aggressive. George's voice came out hollow. "You win, Rebecca." "What do you want, George?" "To tell you my father lied. About the 1899 survey, about everything. I know. But I wanted that land so bad I let myself believe the lie." He looked at her face, showing every one of his 58 years. "Your investigator's right. My father probably killed your grandfather over this." "Jonathan told you." "Brandon did, after he quit my legal team yesterday." George's laugh held no humor. "My own son thinks I'm a monster." "Are you?" "I'm a man who made bad choices for 40 years, trying to prove something to a father who's been dead 20 years himself." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "I'm dropping the claim, all of it. Sweetwater Bend is yours. Always was." Rebecca took the envelope. Legal documents, withdrawal of all Thompson claims, signed and notarized. "Why? Because David was a good man, better than me. He deserved a better partner than I was." George's voice cracked. "And he deserved better than to die because I was too cheap to sell him quality parts." The words hung between them like confession. Rebecca's vision went red at the edges. "You knew? About the combine?" "Not until after. Equipment investigator told me the hydraulic line failed, same line my supply company installed 2 weeks before. I paid him to rule it accident, not defect." He met her eyes. "I'm sorry doesn't bring him back, but I'm sorry anyway." Kenneth's hand touched Rebecca's shoulder, grounding. Without it, she might have swung. Her voice came out deadly quiet. "Get off my property." "Rebecca, now!" George turned back to his truck, defeated. Before getting in, he looked back. "For what it's worth, I hope you make something good here, something that proves we didn't destroy each other for nothing." The F350 drove away. Rebecca stood shaking, rage and grief tangled so tight she couldn't separate them. Kenneth's voice came gentle. "You okay?" "No, but I will be." At 4:30, Laura Miller called. Her voice carried warmth Rebecca hadn't expected. "I heard about the injunction. Congratulations. Your brother was just here. confessed to covering up David's accident. Oh, God. Rebecca, I'm so sorry. He's your family. So are you, and I choose you. Laura paused. Stephen's ready to move forward with the bridge loan as soon as full authentication completes. Should be early next week. Thank you for everything. Thank your ancestors. They were smart enough to document truth in a way that couldn't be erased. The meridian deadline came and went at 5 p.m. Rebecca didn't call, didn't sign, let the offer expire into nothing. Jennifer closed her laptop, looked at her mother. So, we're really doing this, keeping the farm. We're keeping the farm? Then I'm moving back. Her daughter's voice carried decision, not question. Dallas can wait. My family can't. Christopher grinned. Road trip to move your stuff. Next weekend, but Chris, you're staying in school. I know, but summers I'm here, learning the operation, building something. Rebecca looked at her children, Jennifer 26 and Christopher 18, and saw the future David hadn't lived to witness. Continuity despite everything, legacy extending forward instead of ending. Sometimes families fight for generations over things that don't matter, land, money, pride, and sometimes it takes losing everything to realize what actually does matter. Is winning worth destroying the people around you? I wasn't sure anymore. The full evidentiary hearing came 3 weeks later, mid-September, heat still oppressive. Brazos County Courthouse limestone building older than Rebecca's farmhouse courtroom that smelled like furniture polish and nervous sweat. Judge Patricia Martinez presided, 55 and sharp-eyed reputation for cutting through bullshit like a scalpel through tissue. Rebecca sat at the plaintiff's table with Margaret Anderson documents stacked in precise order. George Thompson's legal team had shrunk. Brandon was gone, resigned from the case officially. The remaining lawyers looked expensive and uncomfortable, shuffling papers, while George sat stone-faced. Margaret's opening was surgical. Your Honor, this case is simple. Rebecca Williams holds authenticated 1858 land grant deed and 1859 survey map, predating Thompson family's 1899 claim by 41 years. The 1899 survey was forged by Silas Thompson after Robert Williams's death to facilitate land theft. Thompson's lead attorney stood smooth-voiced, trained on juries. Your Honor, even if Williams' documents are older, our client has maintained continuous adverse possession of Sweetwater Bend for 30-plus years. Under Texas law, this grants legal ownership regardless of original deed. Margaret was ready. We have 15 separate formal complaints filed by Williams' family objecting to Thompson cattle trespass spanning 1989 to 2014. This destroys any claim of uncontested adverse possession. The court will find documentation in Exhibit C. Judge Martinez examined the complaint's expression unreadable. Mrs. Williams, how did you locate these historical documents? Rebecca stood voice steady, despite pulse hammering. My grandfather hid them in 1985. He left instructions in a journal concealed in a 1947 tractor. Instructions that led me to his grave, to a hidden chamber at our windmill, to the truth. Why did your grandfather hide them? Because he believed, and I now have evidence supporting that Ernest Thompson poisoned my grandfather when he got close to finding them in 1987. Thompson's lawyer objected. Hearsay, Your Honor. Unsubstantiated accusation. Margaret cut in. Your Honor, we have investigative records showing pattern of Thompson family harassment, suspicious timing of James Williams' death. Ernest Thompson's immediate land claim filing after James died. Exhibit G. The judge allowed it. Jonathan Martin testified next, laying out 40 years of documented intimidation, medical timelines, property records, pesticide usage logs from Ernest Thompson's agricultural supply company. Then Dr. Patricia Clark took the stand explaining authentication methodology, paper analysis, ink, spectroscopy, seal verification, carbon dating results. Her conclusion was unequivocal. The documents are genuine 1850s originals. No evidence of forgery, tampering, or alteration. Confidence level 99.7%. Thompson's lawyers tried to challenge, brought their own document examiner. He admitted under cross-examination that he'd been hired only 3 days ago, hadn't examined the originals, was basing opinion on photographs. The case was collapsing in real time. Then George Thompson asked to testify. His own lawyers tried to stop him, urgent whispered conference at their table. He ignored them, walked to the witness stand. Judge Martinez looked surprised. "Mr. Thompson, you understand you're under oath." "Yes, Your Honor." "Do you have evidence supporting your 1899 survey claim?" George's paws stretched long enough to ache. "No, Your Honor." His lawyer's face went white. "Mr. Thompson, you don't have to." "My father lied. The 1899 survey was forged. I've known for years, but I wanted that land." His voice broke. "I let the lie continue. I destroyed people over it." "Are you admitting fraud, Mr. Thompson?" "I'm admitting my family's been wrong for 120 years, and I'm asking the court to rule in favor of Rebecca Williams. She's the rightful owner." The courtroom went silent. Even the court reporter stopped typing. George continued, words spilling like confession too long held. "Your Honor, I'd like to make a statement. Rebecca Williams is my cousin. Her grandfather's sister Barbara was my mother. Our families have been destroying each other for generations over land that never belonged to us. I am 58 years old. I'm tired. I'm done. Rebecca Williams deserves this land. She fought for it. She earned it. I'm withdrawing all claims." Judge Martinez studied him for a long moment. "Mr. Thompson, this is highly unusual." "I know, Your Honor, but it's the truth, and it's time the truth won." The judge's gavel came down like punctuation. Based on authenticated historical documents, continuous formal objections to adverse possession, and Mr. Thompson's admission of fraud, I hereby rule Rebecca Williams holds clear unencumbered title to all Williams family land, including the disputed 100 acres known as Sweetwater Bend. Thompson family's 1899 survey claim is declared fraudulent and void. All Thompson claims to Williams' property are dismissed with prejudice. Case closed. Rebecca couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process that it was actually over. Jennifer grabbed her in a hug, both of them crying. Christopher appeared from the gallery, lifting her off her feet. Margaret Anderson was grinning like she'd won the lottery. Laura Miller approached from the back of the courtroom, embracing Rebecca like family. "You did it. We did it. You helped. I just pointed you in the right direction. You did the fighting." George stood near his lawyers, looking smaller than before. He walked over slow, like approaching something that might bite. His voice came out rough. "Rebecca, I'm sorry for everything." She studied him, this man who'd been enemy and cousin and cautionary tale. "I forgive you, George. For me, not for you. Fair enough. But George, if you ever want to rebuild what our family's destroyed, my door's open. Tears tracked down his face. Thank you. The courthouse steps felt like victory despite September heat. Kenneth waited there, having watched from the gallery. He pulled Rebecca into a hug that lasted longer than friendship required, and she let it finally ready to accept what had been offered months ago. His voice was quiet against her hair. Proud of you. Couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to. Stephen Scott's bridge loan closed the following Tuesday. $350,000 transferred to Rebecca's account by wire, more money than she'd seen in one place ever. She paid First National Bank that afternoon, walked out debt-free for the first time in 8 years. The remaining gold coins covered equipment repairs, new irrigation system seeds for spring planting. Christopher came home weekends learning to run machinery, asking questions about crop rotation and soil management. Jennifer opened an office in Bryan Cultural Business, consulting her first client, the Williams Heritage Farm Project, because Rebecca's vision expanded beyond just survival. The additional 200 acres from Robert Williams's second marriage to Elizabeth Martinez gave her room to experiment. She partnered with Texas A&M's extension program, turning the farm into a teaching site. Sustainable agriculture, organic methods, water conservation in drought conditions. Women in Agriculture workshops happened monthly, drawing farmers from 3 counties. Young women, older women, women who'd inherited land and didn't know what to do with it. Women who'd been told their whole lives they couldn't manage operations alone. Rebecca taught them everything she'd learned the hard way. The Heritage Farm Education Center opened in October, barn converted to classroom space. Sweetwater Bend preserved as demonstration pasture. Students walked the same 100 acres 4 generations of Williams had fought for, learned why land was trust, not commodity. George Thompson showed up one afternoon in November with a proposal. Joint Grazing Cooperative, Thompson Ranch, and Williams Farm, sharing resources, splitting costs and profits. Rebecca agreed on one condition. They split oversight, 2 decisions made together, equal partnership. His answer came without hesitation. Deal. Brandon Thompson returned to Texas in December, opened a pro bono legal clinic in Bryan for farmers facing foreclosure. His first case saved a family farm from bank seizure, using precedent from Rebecca's case. The second saved another. Word spread. Kenneth Lee proposed on Christmas Eve, firelight in Rebecca's living room, Scout watching from his rug. The ring was simple. No diamonds, just gold band that fit like it belonged. Her answer came easy. Yes. They married in March, small ceremony at the farm, Jennifer and Christopher standing witness. Laura Miller flew in from Oregon with Stephen. George Thompson came, brought his wife. No speeches about burying hatchets or ending feuds, just family coming together because sometimes that's enough. The following September Harvest Festival at Williams Heritage Farm drew 500 people. Food trucks live music farm tours, kids running through rows of cotton ready for picking. The 1947 John Deere sat restored to glory place of honor near the entrance. Plaque mounted on the fence read, "In memory of James Williams, who preserved truth when silence was easier." Rebecca stood at the podium as evening came on golden hour light, painting everything soft. Her voice carried across the crowd, steady, and sure. Thank you all for coming. A year ago, I was 45 days from losing everything my husband and I built. Today, I stand on land my family has owned for 167 years. Land we'll own for 167 more. This didn't happen because I was special. It happened because I had courage to look for truth, because my grandfather had courage to preserve it, because my great-great-great-grandfather had courage to defend it, and because I had people, family, neighbors, even former enemies who chose to help instead of harm. This farm isn't just mine anymore. It belongs to everyone who believes land is sacred trust, not commodity. Everyone who believes women can do anything men can do, and some things we do better. To the next generation learning here, you are capable, you are worthy, you are enough. Never let anyone tell you different. Applause rolled across the crowd. Jennifer stood near the barn with her fiancé James Smith, agricultural economist she'd met at a farm symposium. Christopher was home from college junior year now, agri-business major, planning to return after graduation. Kenneth stood beside Rebecca, hand in hers, solid as earth. Scout was graying around the muzzle, 10 years old, still sharp enough to herd cattle when needed. The dog lay at her feet, content, job done. George Thompson approached after the speech, awkward but sincere. Hell of a talk, Rebecca. Thanks, George. My father would have hated all this. Good. He laughed, genuine for the first time in her memory. Good. Laura Miller and Stephen Scott brought news. They were moving back to Texas, buying property near Brenham, wanted to be close to family. Stephen was retiring from active investing, but would advise the Heritage Farm Project, help secure grants and partnerships. Margaret Anderson cornered Rebecca near the refreshment table. The State Bar Association wants to feature your case in their journal. Historic document authentication saves family farm. Will it help other farmers? It'll give them hope and legal precedent. Then yes. Dr. Patricia Clark drove up from Austin, brought news that Rebecca's documents were being archived by the Texas State Historical Commission, preserved for future generations, available to researchers studying land rights and pioneer families. As sunset painted the sky purple and orange, Rebecca walked to the cemetery, alone except for Scout carrying wildflowers from Sweetwater Bend. Robert Williams's grave looked the same weathered limestone epitaph about taming land, but next to it now stood new granite for James Williams. He preserved truth and trusted the future. She laid flowers on both. Grandpa James, great-great-great-grandpa Robert, I kept the promise. The land's safe, the family's together, the truth is free. And Grandpa, I'm not afraid anymore, just like you asked. Scout made a sound, not quite a bark. Agreement maybe, or farewell to ghosts, finally put to rest. Rebecca pulled the strongbox's final secret from her jacket, the letter she'd found weeks ago, but saved for this moment. Robert Williams's message to future Williams women, written months before his death. The words blurred as she read. To the Williams women who come after, if you are reading this, you have shown courage my sons never did. You have searched when others quit. You have fought when others surrendered. I write this in 1897, knowing I am dying. I leave this land to my son James, but I know the truth. Women are the true guardians of land. My wives, Linda and Elizabeth, understood this. Land is not property to dominate. It is life to nurture. Should any Williams woman face threat to this land, know this. You have legal right. You have blood right. You have moral right. But more than documents, you have strength of every woman who worked this soil before you. Do not let men Thompson or Williams or any other tell you what you can or cannot do with your inheritance. This land belongs to those who love it enough to fight for it. You are worthy. You are capable. You are enough. She read it 3 times, then folded it carefully back into its envelope. Some truths needed to be heard more than once. Walking back to the farmhouse, she saw it all spread before her. Cotton fields, harvested stubble, golden in dying light. Cattle grazing, Sweetwater Bend, water rights secured for next century. Windmill turning steady blades, catching wind. Farmhouse warm with lights, Kenneth visible through kitchen window. Christopher and Jennifer setting table for dinner. Families touring the education center, taking photos, learning history. Children playing near the restored John Deere, climbing on history without knowing they were. The past wasn't dead. It was alive in every deed filed, every fence mended, every seed planted. Her great-great-great-grandfather had hidden his truth in iron because iron doesn't rust away like paper. It endures, and so did they. The Williams women, the farmers, the fighters, they endured, and they won. If your ancestors could leave you one hidden message, one truth they never got to tell you, what do you think it would be? Share your story in the comments, because everyone's family has secrets, and sometimes those secrets are exactly what we need to hear. The farmhouse door opened to warmth and voices. Kenneth's laugh, mixing with Jennifer's Christopher, saying something that made them both grin. Scout trotted ahead, tail wagging home in every sense that mattered. Rebecca followed her dog inside, closed the door on September evening, sat down to dinner with the family. David never got to see. Complete. The table was full, the farm was shod, the story was finished. Except, stories never really finish. They just pause between chapters, waiting for the next generation to pick up the thread. Jennifer's wedding happened in June, outdoor ceremony at the farm white chairs, arranged near Sweetwater Creek. Christopher served as usher. Kenneth walked Jennifer down the aisle, with Rebecca blending families in ways that felt natural now. James Smith was good man, patient, and kind, exactly what Jennifer needed. The honeymoon was brief, 2 weeks in Colorado. Jennifer came back tanned and planning already, talking about converting the old equipment shed into proper office space, expanding the consulting practice, bringing in partners. Christopher graduated that same month, came home with degree in agricultural business and job offers from 3 consulting firms. He turned them all down. I'm staying, building this with you. Rebecca didn't argue. The farm needed young energy, new ideas, someone who understood modern marketing and social media and how to make sustainability profitable. She'd been fighting alone too long. By August, they'd established Williams Heritage Farms, LLC official business entity with all 3 as partners. Rebecca managing operations, Christopher handling business development, Jennifer running consulting and education programs, Kenneth advising, supporting, loving Rebecca in ways that didn't compete with David's memory but complemented it. The first winter wheat crop came in strong yield, exceeding projections by 30%. New irrigation from Sweetwater Bend made the difference reliable water turning mediocre soil into productive ground. They sold the harvest at premium organic certification, commanding higher prices. Money went back into the operation. Better equipment, soil testing, cover crops to rebuild nutrients depleted by decades of conventional farming. Christopher negotiated contracts with restaurants in Houston, farm-to-table operations, willing to pay premium for quality and story. Because the story mattered. People wanted to know their food came from farms with history, with families who'd fought to preserve land rather than exploit it. Williams Heritage Farm had that story in abundance. Second anniversary of the court victory, Rebecca stood at the windmill foundation where everything began. The concrete lid that had hidden the strongbox was sealed, now chamber filled with fresh concrete site, marked with bronze plaque. Here, truth waited patient as iron until courage came to claim it. Scout had passed in his sleep that spring, old age finally catching what cancer and time couldn't. They'd buried him under the live oak near the house grave, marked with stone that read, Scout, good dog, better friend, best partner. A new border collie puppy ran circles around Rebecca's feet, now 8 months old. Blue and brown eyes, just like Scout's. Christopher had named her Courage. The dog was still learning, still young, still figuring out that sheep don't always want to go where you want them. But she'd learn. They all learned eventually. Kenneth found Rebecca at the windmill, brought coffee in a thermos, stood beside her, looking across land that had cost so much to keep. His arm went around her shoulders, comfortable weight. Thinking about what comes next, always, she leaned into him. Christopher wants to start the organic vegetable program next spring, thinks we can supply farmers' markets in 3 counties. Can you handle the extra workload? We'll hire help. Laura's nephew is looking for farm work, wants to learn sustainable practices. And Jennifer knows someone from college who studied permaculture, needs internship placement. So the farm keeps growing. The farm keeps evolving. Same land, new purpose. Feeding people, teaching people, giving them connection to where food comes from. Kenneth's kiss landed on her temple, gentle. David would be proud. I think so too. They stood together as afternoon faded toward evening, watching Courage chase rabbits she'd never catch, watching cotton grow in fields that would be harvested in weeks, watching the future take shape one season at a time. The land had been worth fighting for, not because it was profitable or easy or made sense on paper, but because 4 generations of Williams women had walked this soil, planted their children here, buried their dead, here defended it against those who saw only dollars where they saw home. Rebecca's hand went to the gold band on her left ring finger, David's wedding ring on a chain around her neck. Both marriages mattered. Both loves shaped her. Neither diminished the other. That's what George Thompson never understood. That's what the old feuds missed entirely. Love isn't finite. It doesn't run out because you give it to more than one person, more than one purpose, more than one dream. The Williams Heritage Farm fed hundreds now through direct sales and education programs. It would feed thousands as the model spread, other farms adopting similar practices, other families learning that survival didn't mean selling out. And when Rebecca was gone, when her time came, decades from now or tomorrow, the land would still be here. Christopher would run it, or Jennifer's children, or some future Williams woman who needed to hear that she was worthy, capable enough. The Iron Testament wasn't just the documents hidden underground. It was the commitment renewed each generation to preserve what mattered, even when easier paths existed. Rebecca turned from the windmill called courage to heel. The puppy came mostly close enough. They walked back toward the farmhouse together, Kenneth's hand in hers, late afternoon sun painting everything gold. Inside, dinner waited. Family waited. The life she'd fought for and earned and chosen again every morning when she woke up and decided the fight was worth continuing. The past had been preserved. The present was secure. The future was being written one season at a time. One student taught one farm, saved one person at a time, learning that land was trust, not commodity, that women could do anything, that courage was choice, not accident. And really, wasn't that the whole point? Not winning, not even surviving, but building something worth passing forward, something that mattered, something that would last beyond memory into legacy. The Williams farm would last, because some things once defended properly became too strong to break, and because 4 generations of stubborn women had proven that truth was worth hiding, worth finding, worth fighting for, no matter what it cost. Rebecca closed the farmhouse door behind her, shutting out September evening, stepping into light and warmth and the sound of Kenneth's laugh, mixing with her children's voices. Scout's old bed sat empty in the corner, but courage would fill it soon enough once she learned her place. Everything had its time, everything had its season, and this season finally was harvest.